Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Power 365 show. Today, I have a customer success manager from Microsoft, Stuart Ridout from the United Kingdom. We chat around how he really runs his day and integrates PowerApps, Power Automate, and Microsoft Teams as he actually applies it to his role and also with his customers. Full show notes for this episode will be found at nz365guy.com/200. Now let's get on with the show. Stuart, welcome to the Power 365 show.
Lovely to be here. I'm really excited. We took a couple of attempts trying to schedule this up. I was supposed to be going on holiday, and so it's taken a while, but obviously my holiday got cancelled due to circumstances.
So interesting enough, today we're recording this and we're halfway through the Microsoft Business Application Summit, so I've just ducked out of these sessions to have this chat with you. Tell me, first of all, where in the world do you come from and what do you do for a job?
So I'm UK born and bred, although I lived abroad a little bit as a child because I was an army child. Actually, I moved around quite a lot as a result of that. But now I live in sunny Milton Keynes in the UK. But I am a customer success manager in Modern Workplace for Microsoft, which I think is an awesome job because it's fantastic. I get to work with customers, evangelize about the technology, talk about all of the great things we can do, but it's not a sales role because they've already bought it. So I just have to try and make them successful with the stuff that they've already got. And it's a great role. I absolutely love it.
So is Janet that, introduced me to you, and Janet's, fantastic. She's based out of she's in the UK subsidiary as well.
Love Janet. Yeah, she is, yes.
Yeah. And what she said to me, she said, you've got to get Stuart on because he is the personification of using Power Apps Flow, all the tools, Microsoft Teams, that type of thing in his day-to-day life. He's actually built it into his entire job role. And that's what I'm really looking forward to unpacking with you today.
Yeah, so I consider myself to be, although I'm an employee of Microsoft, I actually consider that I'm a customer of the Power Platform in this role and my previous role. So previously, I was a project manager within our secure infrastructure part of the business. So kind of dealing with Azure and data centers and all those kind of things. So I'm a customer of the Power Platform as well as an employee.
Fantastic. And when you're not at work, what do you get up to?
Mainly just chasing around after my children at the moment.
Yeah. How many do you have?
I've got two kids. I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. So yeah, mainly chasing around them. I've got a guitar in the corner of my office, which I think the strings are covered in dust because I look at it wistfully and then something else comes in that's higher priority or something else. So I've got a guitar in the corner which isn't getting played. So that's
nice.
Mainly it. Mainly family life at the moment.
Yeah, sounds good. So we're currently, living in this COVID world and within our bubbles and stuff. How have things changed for you than, if you like, your normal day-to-day, what your role entailed? How has that changed, with the current world situation that we find ourselves in?
So, for me, Microsoft has always been very good in allowing people to work from wherever is best for them. So even though technically on the GAL, I'm listed as my office in Reading. I only kind of drop in there every now and then. I tended to work from home previously or go to customer sites. So obviously, that's changed the dynamic with that customer interaction, where we've been kind of going to their offices. A lot of my customers are based in London and kind of going in to see them. But what it has meant is that I'm not traveling to see my customers in the morning and not traveling back in the evening. And actually we're managing to fit more in and be a little bit more productive. And, and our customers, I think now we're starting to see things balance out. So they've had the initial kind of shock almost of trying to find that new way of working. And now they're settling into it. And, for me, with the way that I'm working with my customers, we're really looking forward now to kind of what's going to be going on in the next 6 months. So, okay, you might have made a jump to Teams or you might have already been in Teams and you're using it a little bit more. But actually now where I really want to focus on is now you're on, how are you going to use it the best way possible? So really, how are you going to be treating Teams as a platform rather than saying this is a Skype replacement? We can do calls, we can do chat, we can do meetings, and the meetings, are beautiful, they're wonderful quality, but actually how can you really leverage the power of Teams to kind of make it that hub, pulling in Power Platform and, all of that kind of stuff?
So do you think it's going to change the way, let's say we get back to a sense of where we were in January or December last year, in our work lives. Do you think for you this has potentially created a mind shift? And even with, the Microsoft customer base, that there might be a more efficient way of doing business that doesn't involve us always, not saying never get together, but perhaps less frequently getting into the same room, but still having that high degree of communication using products like Teams and the rest of the tool set from Microsoft to engage business, but without that need to necessarily have long commute times.
Absolutely. I think what's going to be born out of the necessity of our current situation is this middle ground where people go, do you know what? I don't have to make my people, trudge into the office 5 days a week. And now that they've found the tools, they're now starting to question their practices and say, what were we doing before? I mean, I had a friend text me. I mean, it's amazing how many friends who have obviously listened to me witter on about Microsoft Teams and Power Platform and all of that have now kind of gone, oh, maybe he has got something useful to say. I'll ask his advice on some things. But I mean, I had someone message me the other day and they were just saying, do you know what? The whole stack is amazing and I never realized how great it was. And he said, I've never experienced Planner or Power Automate, but now I can't work out why more people don't know about this. It's so intuitive when interfacing with Teams, Outlook and SharePoint. It's going to revolutionize project startup and governance. It's amazing functionality, and that's come out of that necessity of having to work differently. So when they all get back into the office, they might say, we like to get together. We like to make sure that we have face-to-faces wherever, where we can. But actually, that there's a better way to automate some of these things and use our time on higher value tasks.
Yeah. So true. So the day in the life of your role as a customer success manager, what does it involve doing? How does it involve empowering the Microsoft customer base?
So, it's a lot of listening, a lot of questions and saying, why, what is your business problem, and why can't you adopt the thing that you've already bought? So, I'm currently working with a customer looking at incident management and how they can start to use, leverage their investment in Teams to be able to use that for critical incident management. And some of that is just being able to have, because we've got this breadth of interacting with so many customers and, centralizing all of these great success stories from what our customers are doing, we're able to pull that together and then share that with our customers and say, well, actually, I had an airline that did this, and we don't have to say who the airline is. We don't have to give any details, but we can give them that general steer towards that. But then also because we're so connected, with BizApps, customer success managers and Azure customer success architects and all of that stack, we can kind of, well, do you know what? Teams can get you 90% of the way there, but what you probably really want to do is then layer a Power App over the top of that that's going to be embedded into Teams, and that's going to get you that extra 10%, and that's what's really going to make the difference for you. Or, Power Automate. I think, when we talk about those horrible paper processes where things, where documents are just getting passed around for approval and then someone's sending an email back saying, I approve, and someone's got to collate all of that, just the approval workflow. When we talk to customers about approvals in Power Automate, that is amazing. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So, a lot of listening and then kind of spreading that great practice.
I remember some years ago, I was in Sydney, Australia at the time, and I was out with Microsoft, so it was Microsoft and myself. I was representing a partner, one of the global insurers, and he was the CTO, and he said, listen, the reason why I want Microsoft technology in my business is, he said, the software's great. He said, but I feel that you, Microsoft, have all this expertise across other industry sectors that are not related to mine, but I feel that I could learn from you and go, okay, how could that totally unrelated industry still impact the way we run our back office operations, how we create efficiencies and things like that? And that was probably before the time that Microsoft had, started rolling out CSMs, customer success managers, across the business. Do you find that that's one of the real, the bits of glue, I suppose, that you bring to these relationships, is that you can give so many stories about how other companies are using the technologies and how, it could be applied to that business?
Absolutely. And, we share a lot of our customer stories internally on Yammer so that people who are in different verticals can see that, but between them. So the way that we try to organize our verticals, the way that we work, is we try to kind of group them in where there would be synergies between them. So for instance, if you're public sector and some of those areas are very heavily regulated, they might be able to learn a lot from our FSI customers who are also very heavily regulated. A retail customer might be able to learn a lot from manufacturing and vice versa. So some of the great work that our retail customers are doing with first line workers and being able to kind of empower them using the device that's in their hand, that also applies to a factory worker. That also applies to somebody in the transport industry who's customer facing, etc. So, those synergies come through that. And also, let's not forget that actually our partner ecosystem as well, the partners have also got great experience across industries, which they can bring, and bring that to life as well.
Yeah. That's so powerful, is, that storytelling. So the integration of, PowerApps, Power Automate, and Microsoft Teams is something that I know you're an expert at. So as and applying it, in the way you run your day-to-day work life, can you tell me about why Teams is so important in the kind of center of that universe?
I think because we talk about Teams as the hub for teamwork, and I don't want to be sounding corporate or buzzwordy, but I genuinely do believe that that's it. I look at my own work patterns. I would say that I spend, probably 90% of my comms, if not more, happen in Teams. And very little of that is now happening in Outlook. But I'm chopping so much between different pieces of work. It's much easier for me to be able to kind of integrate my workflow through Teams. So some of the things that we do, so we have a Power App internally in my team that we use to track customer success events and engagements and things like this, so that we can sort of say, we ran an excitement day for this customer. How did that impact the usage there? And that's pinned onto my left-hand rail because it's something that I use all of the time. But also when it sends out notifications, we make sure now, even though, it's super easy in Power Automate to send notifications into Outlook, but actually we make sure that by design, when we're doing stuff in Power Automate, we're sending them as messages to the user in Teams rather than Outlook, because we know that that's where our users are spending their time, within Teams. So I think all of that, being able to embed it into that. When we added the button that said add to Teams in Power Apps, I was really cheering, because that makes it so much easier for people to bring in. But, if I speak to other people within the business or speak to customers who are designing Power Apps, constantly banging this drum to say, when we're sending signals back out of that Power App, the Power Automate, whatever, let's get those signals to come back into Teams. Let's post it into channel. If it's an approval, let's post the approval into a channel so that it's not stuck with a person, because otherwise we're just kind of repeating the patterns that we've had previously. So I think that's where there's so much to do. And again, our customers are doing fantastic things with this, and some of the power as well. One of the things that really excites me is linking up the Office, the Graph API in with Power Automate, being able to spin up teams automatically. So if you want to create an incident team, so if I go back to my example, I'm working with my customer at the moment, they want to create an incident, or if there is an incident, they want to create an incident team automatically. And that's just powered by the graph. Power Automate runs, it goes and makes the graph call, it creates the team, it adds the people in. It makes it so easy for them to do that. And whether that's triggered through a Power App, which is, one of the ways that we're doing it, but also if it's triggered just for like a webhook and bringing in things like this, so powerful.
What have you seen around, you said something interesting there about Outlook, rather than drive to an email in Outlook and it gets tied up with that one individual, you're driving into a channel so that, other people could potentially action it if someone was out of action, so to speak. How do you change, or what have you seen effectively change behaviors in an organization where people are very bogged down and, I'll just flick an email off? I know with my own team, it's a constant reminder to them that, hey, I'll answer this one in Teams. Like, let everybody learn also from it. When you send me a one-to-one, and even I find sometimes staff will want to chat with you just on a chat where I feel the knowledge is beneficial to everybody in the organization. So I'm more to, hey, let's move it to a channel. There's nothing private in this conversation. It's about how we're running our business. How do you or what have you seen effective to create that kind of change from people typing up emails or going to private chats and really letting everybody learn from the conversation that's in flight?
Yeah. So learning from what Janet was talking about was having about champions. When Janet was doing her, her chat with you, she was talking about champions, and those champions are our biggest asset in being able to drive that behavior. But, they have to have the strength to be able to go, let's move this conversation to Teams, or let's move this conversation from chat into channel. And this is something that actually, my team have been looking at recently just for our own behavior. So we've been revisiting the way that we use the technology to say, as we've evolved, as we've matured with this, what have we learned about and how can we change this? So one of my colleagues, Chris Slemp, wrote a fantastic article about the rules of the road for the team.
Oh, nice.
And just so our guiding principle now is to kind of say, am I going to want to refer to this in 2 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, and is it beneficial to other people? So we have So my team has a big chit-chat team, and my team are chatty. So apologies, team, if you're listening. They are super chatty. It's ping, 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 ping. But they also, we all acknowledge that if work chat slips into the chit-chat, it gets lost, and it's hard for people to find. So, it is a discipline thing for us to be able to do it, but we also empower everybody within the team to kind of hashtag Teams police things, and someone will just bam in a Teams police hashtag, and they'll stick in an animated GIF of these two police officers looking at them, say, I think we need to move this into a channel conversation, and there's this agreement amongst everyone that nobody's insulted by that. Everybody's like, yep, okay, you got me. And it might be, you're having a channel related chat in a chat, or it might be you're working too late, or whatever, any of those things. But, it is about your ethos as a team and how you do that. But writing the rules of the road, I think is a great way to, and pinning it onto your general channel is a great way for new people, because you forget that new people come in and out of teams all of the time. And all of that knowledge that you've accumulated for your teams, people who've been in that team for 18 months or whatever, the newbie who comes in, they don't know that. So if they can just say, right, okay, this is what to use, for what, then it makes their life a lot easier for them, yeah.
How do you stop chaos ensuing in teams? As in, you talked about, the Office graph before and just spinning up a team or a channel to carry out something. How do you also make sure that there's good hygiene around archiving off, channels? Because, I've found very quickly, I've got logged into multiple team environments. I've got multiple channels in flight on any of those. And then sometimes I'm just like, wow, what should I be focusing on?
Yeah, so we've got the tools that will enable kind of admins to look and say, is this an active team? Does this team need to be archived, etc.? And there are just other things that we try to articulate a little bit more. So like, you need a minimum of 2 admins for a team, because if you've got one admin and they leave, then that team just becomes orphaned and it just gets stuck. Yes. Nobody can do anything with it. So now, and some of our partners, again, have got great reporting tools that will go through and say, these are dead teams that haven't had anything gone. These ones this has got guests that have been in for quite some time. Maybe you want to review the guest privileges, but also these haven't got 2 owners. And so get another owner onto these teams. But in terms of usage, we've released the tagging feature that was within Teams. That tagging feature is very powerful for being able to group people and maybe reference a group of people who might fall into a channel naturally, but the conversation falls into another channel. So those tags help kind of outmention those people and get the attention to the right people at the right times as well.
You mentioned Rules of the Road and that article that's been written. Is that in the public domain or is that internal doc?
Do you know what? I'm pretty sure that it is in the public domain of LinkedIn. I will dig it out and I will send it across to you because it is fantastic.
We'll put it in the show notes. We'll put it in the show notes so people can, take a look at those examples. Tell me about how you are maximizing Teams, PowerApps, and Power Automate. Kind of, don't have to drill into the detail of what those flows might be or those apps might be, but just at a high level, how are you really utilizing these 3 tools together?
So, I think what I'm trying to do at the moment is create a customer success toolkit for our people. So we had a number of Power Apps that were just kind of that simple 3-screen Power App that somebody generated that generates that mobile view, which were okay, but people are like, I've got to go for this Power App for this and this Power App for that. So what we're trying to do is work through and consolidate those, move functionality into one master toolkit, and start to close down some of those Power Apps just so that, it's easier for us to manage permissioning on them. It's easier to get everything in one place, and it, just makes life easier for people there. So that's what I've been spending, the last few months looking at doing, and working with some of our business group colleagues and things like this to bring those in. And now what we're trying to do is look at how we can use that data and automate it. So maybe let's say that somebody runs an event, and so that after that event has been run, that we can then ping them something, through a bot and say, how was the event? Was it impactful? What were your lessons learned? And being able to try and capture those lessons learned, centralize them, and then make that available through some kind of knowledge management solution. Because, we've all been there with lessons learned. We've sat down, we've chatted with the project team or whatever. We've got our lessons learned, but actually that knowledge needs to go wide for everybody else to be able to kind of understand and learn from that. So those are some of the things. One of the big power apps for me last year that I worked on was a pinning knowledge management training type thing. So it was called Polaris, and it was for project managers, and it went across the 3 pillars of the PMP framework. And what we'd done is we had all these competencies, and then we'd been in curated learning resources around that. And you could kind of drill down into these things and pin competencies, and then it would build out a learning plan for you automatically and create that for you, ping it to you and your manager, say, here is the learning plan that you've created. And it made life a lot easier. So it was almost like a business Pinterest for professional development. And when I moved into the customer success role, we actually cloned that app and used it then with the framework that we were looking at for customer success.
So if I was to look at the flows that you've authored, that you use to save you time, make you more efficient, make you more productive, what are the key ones that stick out in your mind that you're like, wow, they save me so much time that you've built out?
Some of the ones, and I think this is where we've all got a lot more work to do, is we have enthusiastic people who build Power Automate flows for wider business processes. So for instance, for my one linked into that customer success toolkit, but actually we've still got to push Power Automate for that personal productivity. So for me, I've got a flow that picks up where I receive email receipts from certain like train providers and things like this, the things that I'm doing all the time for my personal expenses. And it picks up that email, it PDFs it goes and saves it into a folder for me, so that when I come do my expenses, and I'm terrible at doing my expenses, everything is there for me straight away. And actually for me, that's probably the flow that runs the most for me and saves me the most time and money, and stops my wife saying, have you put your expenses in? So I think we've still got so much for personal productivity through Power Automate.
Do you see some low-hanging fruit around there, or are you seeing any customers probably down to individuals that have really done some cool stuff that you think, you know what, I need to build that for myself?
So I think we're all still learning, and the community is doing fantastic work. I mean, some of, the videos that John Levex of the world, etc., are all putting out there. Brilliant videos. And some of them, just like scope, having a scope in Power Automate and being able to group everything into that area is so powerful. And when you're first learning it and you've got this massive sprawling flow that's really wide because it's got loads of conditions all over the place and it's unmanageable, and somebody goes, oh, you could pop that into a scope and then you can just collapse that down, and being able to do that error handling, I think that's where it really goes to the next level, to be able to trigger off different things based on if things don't quite go right. Because that's where a lot of that happens.
So in your CSM role, you're obviously in a lot of customers, working with them, and we've got this term, the citizen developer, which are people that are often brilliant at their job function, and now they start picking up tools like Power Automate, like PowerApps and Teams and stuff, and start going, you know what, I can make my company more efficient by implementing this. Are you seeing those subject matter experts that really are becoming technologists? Do you have any examples of where you're seeing that? Is it common or what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I think it is common. And I think people are seeing kind of the summits of the world and holding those up as great examples of people who have that business knowledge being able to take that next step. And I'm currently working with a train company, and we're exploring with them how they use Power Apps and Power Automate and the whole Power Platform to be able to kind of empower some of their first line workers. by building, a really simple little app, but something that stops them scribbling things down on a piece of paper and then sticking into that bottom tray in the mobile app for Teams and making that easier for them. So definitely, I think there's still a massive untapped resource of that citizen developer who's got the business knowledge and wants to take the next step. It's when they get to beyond the level where they're playing with Excel or SharePoint, it's then having the business sponsorship to be able to say, right, okay, we've proved it out. We've used a bit of Excel. We've used some SharePoint lists. We've proved out that technology. We're now ready to make that investment in the Power Platform and go all in on it and say, we're going to get the value for the money for it. We're going to have the common data service. We're going to make sure we've got that enterprise grade security, etc., etc. And it's empowering those citizen developers to have that conversation, to go to the business owners and say, I need more. I've come to the limit of where I can get to. And I know certainly some of the people, either customers that I'm working with as part of my role or are outside of that, are kind of going through that journey at the moment. So I voluntarily work with the school, and they've done a great set of Power Apps around behavior management and kind of trips and things like this. And as it's become more successful, having all of those items kind of going into SharePoint, and they're now at the point where they go, right, okay, we can't invest any more time in SharePoint. We need to step back. We need to be able to, move that across to a common data service, which will give us the power that we need. So, Chris Bateman, who is the teacher there, he's a Microsoft Innovative Educator as well. He's doing great work and a lot of great work happening through our schools as well in Power Apps.
Yeah, so good, so good. One of the features, of course, within Teams is being able to bring in various tabs and other applications. And one of those is Planner. Then we've got To Do, which was the acquisition from Wunderlist back in the day, some time ago now. And so
I think it was about 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. I always say if something's my favorite app, it'll be on the front screen of my phone, and Wunderlist has been on the front screen of my phone for a long time. I've got that many different lists, but of course, end of life, and I have now converted everything across to Do now. But in Outlook, we have tasks, even in Dynamics 365, we have a concept of activities of which there are tasks. We've got To Do, we've got Planner. All these things I hear are coming together. Are you using any or all these tools? And what do you see the vision of the future could be for them?
Yes, I run my life through To Do. To do runs my life because, regardless of whether I'm flagging emails in Outlook or I'm putting tasks in Outlook or I've got actions assigned to me on a planner, they all come through into that one place. And that's really where we're going with Teams as well. So, currently it's early May now. So in the Office 365 message center, there's a message saying that imminently kind of the planner personal app on that left-hand rail is going to start to become tasks, and we'll start to surface more of those tasks in the same way as we do through To Do. But we've also, we announced a few months back about this distributed tasks concept through retail where people can kind of cascade tasks down and, across regions and areas and stores, etc. So, I think task management is our thing that we're conquering at the moment. And it is certainly something that customers want. They want to be able to really be able to keep ahead of their task because we're all doing so much all of the time. I think people are serial list makers. They just need to be able to become serial list ticker offers and get that happy little ping that you get through To Do.
I like that idea of cascading, and being able to cascade out to your team. That's brilliant. Yeah, I can really, see the application of that. What are you seeing from the community around these tools? Are you engaged much in the community across the UK, Europe, that type of thing? What are you seeing coming from the community that's kind of like, wow, that's impressive?
So it's interesting because I think, obviously we know the Power Platform has an amazing community of, builders, people who just want to kind of create solutions. And then I think in the modern workplace space, in kind of that Teams area, I think there's a lot of community focus around comms. A lot of people who are kind of looking to pull through solutions for meeting rooms and, get phone systems across and all of those kind of things. And I think we've still got some room in the intersection of Teams and the Power Platform in terms of building for Teams and, building the apps, building bots, kind of those integrations and things like this, because Microsoft over the past few months have been working diligently to create kind of app templates, and it seems every few weeks, if you look at the Teams app templates page, there are new ones coming all the time, and some of those are fantastic. And I talk to my customers and they go, oh, I didn't know there was that. So we've got, I think our latest one that we've got on there is an incident reporter bot, where anybody can report an incident and they can go through like an incident management solution that kind of talks through their request and would route it through to the correct people and things like this. So I think getting people to be able to build those open source apps and bots is where it's at, or build them for customer solutions, bespoke solutions for customers, whatever. But I think, when we look at these apps that we have in the app template, on the app template page, they're common business problems that happen. So I think this area is still ripe for partners, for businesses to be able to kind of say, do you know what? This is a really common problem. We can build it, and we can build an app or a bot for Teams, which will satisfy, 80% of those use cases, and get that. So I think there's still a space for Teams as a platform, as a community, and whether that moves into the Power Platform community, whether that moves into that kind of that Teams unified comms area, or whether people just kind of float between them. I don't know, but I think there's still some community space there.
Yeah, it's definitely becoming more and more integrated. The lines between where one ends and the other starts is becoming more and more fuzzy all the time.
I saw an illustration today that was associated with the Business Applications Summit. It's like a superhero kind of character. Really, really great, but it's got your Power BI, Power Apps, Power Virtual Agents, etc., Dynamics. It's got all the logos in there, and I was looking at it. There's just a nice little space in there. You could stick a Teams logo in there.
Yeah, I hear you. I
build
saw
that
it
and build that link across.
Yeah, James Phillips was wearing that T-shirt with it on, right?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, it was good. Before we jump on to some quick-fire questions, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think I'm having a great time at the moment. Our customers are seeing great success, and admittedly, some of that is they've been forced into that situation through the COVID-19 scenario. But actually, the company that my wife works for, she had their all hands today, and one of their people said, someone quite senior in their all hands said they called Teams the fourth emergency service for them. So I think, and they kind of quite freely admitted that it wasn't, they've gone faster than they would have perhaps planned to do so. But actually, now that they've made that, they've gone, we can't live without this. So already they're seeing great returns just from that speed, that velocity and tech intensity that they've taken within their business.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay, ready for some quick-fire questions?
Absolutely. Hit me, baby.
Okay, here's some fun part. What's the first music you ever bought?
I think it was a Pet Shop Boys record. Yeah, I think it was a Pet Shop Boys, but I can't for the life of me remember what it was.
Nice. What's a skill you learned when you were young that you still apply today?
Do you know what? I would say it was learning to ride a bike, because I'm actually doing this right now. My son is 5, and I am trying my level best to get him to ride that bike. Whereas my daughter, who's 9, she's like, can we go on a bike ride all the time? But yeah, so doing that. But it's different because we don't have stabilizers now, and we just balance bike and push them off. But yeah, or if kind of bringing it into more of a businessy context, I'm very good. I think I'm a very good multitasker. So I'm quite good at picking things up and dropping things and
you're a male.
Stuff like that.
Amazing.
If you ask my wife, you may not get that response, but I'm not going to be recommending her as an interviewee, just in case.
Classic. Would you rather not have arms or legs, and why?
I think I would rather not have legs than I'd rather have arms.
Yeah,
because then I can type, and I'm a builder. I want to be able to kind of play and experiment and stuff like that.
What stereotype do you live up to?
I would say that I am a typical male, leave things to the last minute. So whenever I've kind of done learning and things like this, and I think I'm quite proactive sometimes especially with our tech intensity, things that we do through work. But, my wife will tell me that I always leave things to the last minute.
Classic. What's one thing that you like that creeps other people out?
One thing that I like? That is a difficult question.
You can pass.
I don't think I creep people out.
Good.
I don't think so. Other people, I don't like Marmite. Other people have Marmite. That's disgusting. That creeps me out. But I think I'm just all round wonderful.
It's delicious. If you could change one thing about the way you were raised, what would you change?
So, I said earlier, I moved around a lot as a child, as an army child. And whilst I think that has given me great strength to be able to kind of adapt to new situations, pick up with people really quickly, because obviously you're changing schools all the time as you move around. Whilst, I take great strength from my upbringing on that. I sometimes, like people like my wife, who has this great history with all of her friends that she was in, friends with since primary school to this nursery, etc. I sometimes kind of think, I wish I had that level of history.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Who do you recommend as a guest for future?
Well, so Chris Slemp, the guy who's about Rules for a Road, he is super passionate about this, and about Yammer and about communities. I could listen to him talk, and he's great at writing, and I think that there's a lot of value. I've got a colleague called Angela Lincoln who works with me on Teams as a platform. And, when she talks to customers about platform and apps and things like this, and people just get it. They just get it, and they go, she just explains it in such a great way. So she's great. Helen Wilson, who is my manager's manager, so she's in charge of the Modern Workplace Customer Success Unit. She speaks so passionately about team and culture and people, the whole thing. She's just passion personified. She's a wonderful speaker.
Fantastic.
And then I would say over in the States, Jason Moreno, who's kind of running our teams as a platform, he's great as well. He speaks to so many customers globally who are really pushing the platform to the limits. And he's really at the cutting edge of trying to empower those global customers.
Fantastic. Well, before we go, Stuart, is there any place online like Twitter, LinkedIn, that type of thing that people can follow what you're doing if you're doing anything on the social media side of things?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, Stuart Ridout. That's Ridout. I'm on LinkedIn as well. I kind of flip-flop between them. Don't bother looking on Instagram because you'll just see pictures of cakes and my kids and all those kind of things. So yeah, I would go with that. I'm trying to kind of build up a bit more YouTubing and a bit more video work as time permits, but Twitter and LinkedIn is where it's at.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Applications MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. Full show notes for this episode can be found at nz365guy.com/200. See you next time.